published on the IAIS website. Thank you once again for joining us today. So let's get it started. Over to you, Monica. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. And welcome everyone to this webinar. Alex, as Fabian said, as a chair of the Resolution Working Group, and I, as a chair of the Macroprudential Supervision Working Group, are pleased to introduce the revision to the IAIS supervisory material. But let me give a brief introduction of the background of the framework and the rationale for the change to be affected the standard, which are now in public consultation. Could you please share the slide, please? Ayana, could you do this?
I think you see I think Siri is now sharing.
Okay. So we can start from the beginning, okay? Okay, thank you very much. So after the background, we can move to the next slide, please. So after the background, I will present you the proposed change to the ICP 16 related to liquidity risk, counterparty risk appetite, contingency funding plans, and Alex will be introduced the proposal change to the ICPs 12 and 16 related to recovery and resolution plans and powers. Move to the next slide, please. I would like to quickly reiterate that the insurance core principle for form is the globally accepted framework for insurance supervision and have the aim to encourage the maintenance of consistency high supervision standard in IAIS member jurisdiction. And the common frame, as we know, for the supervision of the International Active Insurance Group that we call COMFRAME, builds on ICP's established supervisory standard and guidance focus on the effective group-wide supervision of internationally active insurance group. We can go just a little bit back, but okay. The area we are in particular focus are the macroprudential supervision. And in particular, we set requirements on the macroprudential supervision, in particular in ICP 9 and ICP 24. After the other important ICP regarding the requirements on insurers, in particular enterprise risk management requirements related to liquidity risk in particular, and the counterparty risk exposure and macroeconomic exposure. And the ICP interested are the ICP 16 and 20. And also the crisis management and planning that deal with the coordination of crisis management preparation, requirement on recovery plan and resolution framework power. And the ICP involved are ICPs 25, 16, and 12. After we also touch another important point is the power of intervention, preventive and corrective measures, and here the ICP is ICP 10. We can move ahead, please. And okay, go ahead with the next slide, please. Okay, as a part of the endorsement by the Financial Stability Board, the IAIS committed to consider the lesson learned from its implementation, and in particular are really very useful the targeted jurisdictional assessment, we call TGAs, which was an intensive assessment of the implementation of the holistic framework supervisory material. And we have a very important lesson learned, and this is in fact the main motivation that drive us to make the review of the standard that we are now under public consultation. In fact, accordingly, the IAIS has revised some of the ICPs and related COMFRAME standards that form part of the holistic framework supervisory material. The consultation covered proposed a revision to supervisory material that incorporate the lesson learned, as I said before, in the aim to better improve the clarity on intended outcomes, ensure consistency in interpretation, and avoid unintended consequences or misunderstanding, in order also to have an homogeneous approach. We can go ahead, please. Okay, and we go in the main focus of this presentation. In fact, the revision include the standard and guidance material related to liquidity risk, counterparty risk appetite, contingency funding plan, and ICP 16, as I said, that deal with the enterprise risk management for solvency purpose. And Alex introduced the standard guidance material related to recovery and resolution plan and resolution power in ICP 12 and ICP 16 and related conference material. So the revision are planned to be finalized, taking into account the consultation feedback, of course, by the end of this year. And we also prepare, NIIS will also prepare and consult on necessary update to the associated supporting material, so such as the application paper as well. We can move to the next slide, please. In fact, the consultation period is started in the last 27th of March and hand to the next 27th of June of this year. The feedback is so on the draft revision to ICP 12 and 16 and the related conference, as I said. So we invite you to send your feedback via the consultation tool accessed by the IIS website, so the consultation page, and the final version of the material informed by consultation feedback is anticipated at the end of this year and following adoption by the IIS governance. Okay, so we can start to the main part, that is the proposal change to the ICP 16. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so we can open the section to the first part of the consultation regarding the proposal change to ICP 16, deal with liquidity risk, counterparty risk appetite, and contingency funding plan. It's important to say that we can move to the next slide, please. And we propose the two revision, not very important because we tend to maintain the standard as it is, but we just want to, as I said, better increase the clarity of the principle, the standard in ICP and COMFRAME. First of all, we make some revision of the ICP 16.6 and the relative COMFRAME 16.6.b and the current standard, the required insurance ERM framework that say that to include an explicit investment policy that include a counterparty risk appetite statement. We propose a minor drafting change to the standard and guidance, and the proposal introduce flexibility by allowing the specification of counterparty risk appetite statement within the broader ERM context. The proposal change make the standard less prescriptive by allowing the counterparty risk appetite to be specified within the investment policy. This is what we learn, as I said, by the TGA assessment, and the objective is the proposal to make the standard less prescriptive, but also provide flexibility to account for different jurisdictional needs. So there are also minor changes to the guidance to align it with the proposal change to the standard, but in fact we make a little modification of the standard, and in particular we tend to we just try to to clarify the meaning of the standard. In particular, the counterparty risk appetite established that the level of the risk of the insurance is willing to accept that a counterparty will be unable to meet its obligation as they fall due with a focus on relevant risk limit. So we try to also modify the frames in order to be aligned with the ICP, and this is the main rationale behind the proposal change that now are under public consultation. Either ECP interested is the other part of the ICP 16 is the X16.9. In the next slide, please. Okay, and it is on a contingency funding plan, and this ICP, the current standard requires that the insurance to establish more detailed liquidity risk management processes as part of its IRM framework that include also a contingency funding plan. So the proposal addresses the perceived over-prescriptiveness of the standard by providing clarity in the guidance, and we take into account the lesson learned by, as I said also before, the TGA assessment. And in fact, the proposal redrafting specify that the contingency funding plan must be a standalone document or at the supervisory description incorporate elsewhere the ERM. This proposal align with the TGA's recommendation, try to reduce the prescriptives also in this case, and give also in this case more flexibility. In fact, there are no proposal change to the standard. However, there are a proposal change in the guidance that have, in particular, the aims to clarify that the contingency funding plan at the description of the supervisor that I say, there may be either a standalone document or integrated fully and comprehensively into another document as a part of another element of the ERM. The main purpose is to increase the flexibility, and but try to be focused on the aim of the principle. There are proposed change to be renumbering of the guidance to improve clarity, but this is it's not so important, but they are also in line with the main change that I presented now. There are other small change, but just to be aligned with the ICP to the frame in 16.9.c, but this is the main aspect that we proposed and are now under public consultation. I hope that this help you to understand better the rationale under the proposal change, and so we are available, me, Karen, and the Secretariat, we are available to answer to every question that could you can propose. Thank you very much for your attention. I give the floor to you, Fabian. So.
Thank you, Monica. Let's see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Okay, I think there are some questions in the chat, but I think those are more for the next part.
Exactly.
I'll hold on to those. But if you have any questions, please raise your hand, your virtual hands, and we can unmute you so you can ask your question. Otherwise, just write your question in the chat. Let's just keep people a couple of minutes. But if there are no questions, perhaps we can move with the next. I think there is one question, Garland Pezzuolo. Sylvie, if we cannot unmute Garland. I think you're unmuted now, Garland. Please go ahead.
At a very high level, can you just explain to me whether ICP 16 as revised is meant to cover all IAIGs and not just those deemed systemically important.
Thank you for that. Monica or Karen, I don't know if you want to go ahead, but obviously important to clarify that the standards that apply specifically to IAIGs are ConFrame standards, right? So, but I don't know if Hani want to add something to it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Sylvia's able to go back to slide 2 or 3, but indeed the ICPs, they apply to all insurance companies, and then ConFrame applies to all IAIGs. But it is correct that in ICP 16 there are also some standards that apply to insurers as necessary. So that could be only a subset of the insurance sector. But perhaps you may wish to clarify your question if you had a specific question related to a specific standard, then we could be a bit more concrete in our response. I think it's the next slide. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Sylvie.
Okay, I don't see Garland with her hand raised. Any other questions? Please raise your virtual hand or write it in the chat. I wonder if there's a good time perhaps to continue with the presentation and go onto the other proposed changes. And if there are, of course, questions about this, we can always take those at the end. So with that, perhaps let me just handle the floor over to Ayana. So Ayana, please go ahead.
Thank you, Fabian and Monica. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ayana Ishii from the II Secretariat. We are now moving on to the second part of this session on the recovery and resolution related material. So, Sylvie, yeah, can you go forward? Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sylvie. So to present this section, let me pass to Alex Hart, the chair of the Resolution Working Group. Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Ayana, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to learn about some of the changes that we're proposing for the supervisory material. As my colleague Monica mentioned in the background and introductory material, the genesis for the changes that we've proposed was the fallout from the TJA exercise, where it was found that there were some places in parts of the supervisory material that there was a lack of clarity, or there was some interpretive issues that things were not being interpreted the same way by all jurisdictions, or that there were other issues just with some things that might not have been covered completely that led to some unintended consequences. So, EXCO charged us at the Resolution Working Group with a few very specific things, among them to look at ICP 12.3 and the powers of resolution that were listed in ICP 12.7. So we can advance to the next slide, please. So getting into ICP 12.3, and you will see now that as a part of the proposed revisions, we have added a new ICP 12.4. So at the standard level, we're proposing to include a requirement for supervisors and/or resolution authorities to have a process to prepare for resolution in general, and that's found in ICP 12.3. and a separate requirement for a process to regularly assess which insurers must have a resolution plan in the new ICP 12.4. This means that we're proposing to move the resolution plan requirement from ComFrame to the ICPs to be applied to not only in the former language IAIGs as necessary, but to all insurers as necessary based on established criteria and at a minimum for any insurer that is assessed to be systemically important or critical if it fails. So these changes are made to ensure consistency in determining those insurers that are in scope of the requirement, recognizing that resolution plans may be needed also for non-IAIGs, and to align the standards better with the FSB's key attributes. I'd like to mention that the underlying thought process here was a recognition of the fact that resolution plans may be necessary for certain insurers that are not an IAIG, but yet their disorderly failure could have systemic impact. Next slide, please. So on the resolution powers that are now located in ICP 12.8 and ComFrame 12.8.A through I, again, the numbering change to accommodate the 12.4 that we just discussed. New language is being proposed in ICP 12.8 to hopefully clarify the meaning of an appropriate range of powers and ensure global consistency. We grouped the resolution powers into a number of separate categories. And the following powers were originally included only in ComFrame, but are added to the ICP as they might be relevant for resolving an insurer that is not an IAIG. Those being the temporary stay of early termination rights, establishment of a bridge institution, and steps to provide continuity of essential services and functions. At the ComFrame level in CF 12.8.A through I, instead of covering all the required resolution powers in one long standard with 20x odd powers listed out, these are proposed to be covered likewise in multiple standards, allowing for a more precise implementation assessment. We've tried to group the powers around outcomes, such that, those, for example, those powers that would be necessary to take control of an institution, for example, are all grouped together rather than scattered about kind of randomly throughout this long list. Is what we found was if one power was missing, it affected the observation level for the entire list of powers. So we thought that this was a better way to go about presenting the powers. Next slide, please. So ICP 16.15 and correspondingly a new ICP 16.16 on recovery plans basically these changes were made to align with those for resolution plans that we just discussed in ICPs 12.3 and 12.4. I want to particularly note that insurers are required to evaluate in advance their specific risks and options and potential recovery scenarios, meaning that this is intended to be preemptive in nature. The scope of the requirement for the development of a recovery plan is aligned with that of a resolution plan, meaning they're both based on established criteria and at a minimum for any insurer that is assessed to be systemically important or critical if it fails. So next slide, please. So the questions that we're really asking here in the consultation with regards to ICP 12.3 and ICP 16.15 is around the notion that the ICPs establish the minimum requirements for effective insurance supervision and expected to be implemented and applied in a proportional manner. Do you guys, in commenting, favor the proposed proportionate application of certain recovery and resolution planning requirements to all insurers. And we'd hope that you would give explanation and detail of how you perceive proportionality should apply and where such planning should be deemed necessary. We will consider this feedback in final versions of the ICP guidance or in the supporting material, that is application papers, one each on resolution powers and planning, and also on recovery planning. Secondly, on ComFrame 12.4.a, recovery plans are required for all IAIGs, and resolution plans are required to be in place at a minimum for any insurer that's assessed to be systemically important or critical if it fails, regardless of its status as an IAIG. Due to the nature, scale, complexity, and arguably there could be a presumption that all IAIGs could be subject to the requirement to have a resolution plan unless deemed unnecessary by the supervisor or resolution authority, even if not assessed as systemically important. So the question in the consultation is, are you in favor of or against the possible introduction of a requirement or presumption that resolution plans are required to be in place for all IAIGs? And we'd like that you would please explain those opinions. I've mentioned a couple of times too the supporting materials, the application papers. We recognize that we've done some reasonably extensive changes to ICP 12.3 and 12.4 and the corresponding ICP 16 sections, and that there will need to be some explanation beyond just the guidance in the ICPs in terms of what the intents are behind some of these things, and we will do that in the application paper revisions that will follow this consultation and adoption of the revised ICPs. That's the end of my formal presentation. Likewise, I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Alex. I see a couple. I see one hand. Paul, please go ahead.
Well, hi, it's Paul Petrelli. I assume you've unmuted me so I can ask my question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Great, thank you, Alex. Thanks very much for that overview. I just wanted to ask one question. The amendments or the proposed changes to the ICP, in some places the term resolution plan is used. In other places the term resolution planning is used. I recognize there's context around that, but I do want to know, Alex, if you have a view on whether there's a substantive difference between plan and planning, if you're viewing a plan as a comprehensive document that is to be developed, or plan encompasses the active work of reviewing resolution issues, strategies, consultation, discussion among interested parties, etc. Thank you.
Paul, that is an excellent question, and one, in fact, that was debated at great length in the resolution working group as we were putting this together. And we struggled somewhat over making that distinction. I think to your question, let's answer the easy part first, and that is that yes, a plan is a formal written document that is agreed upon between the supervisor and resolution authority and the insurer. Planning is a little bit more hard to pin, and I think we mean it to be in a broad context of that whole process of thinking about what needs to happen in the event of a failure. Does that necessarily mean that the outcome of planning is a plan. Not necessarily, but that's also something that we'd be happy to take feedback on in the consultation. Because I say we debated that greatly. And I'd also note that also on the call this morning is my trustee vice chair, Francois Tampe from ACPR. So I'll actually invite Francois if he would like to further comment on that, because he likewise was key in that conversation. Francois, anything to add?
Nothing to add. I think you've summed it up perfectly, Alex. But indeed, any thoughts during the consultation phase will be more than welcome.
That's great. Thanks very much. That's very helpful. We will provide some perspective on that in our submission. Thanks.
Great. We'll look forward to that, Paul.
Alex, just a reminder, we have received some questions from Tommy before during the Monica's presentations. You
Okay,
see
in the chat.
Yes, in the chat
Let's
box.
see. Can it be understood that as a result of the revisions, not only for IEIGs, but also other insurance companies may be required to prepare resolution and recovery plans? Yes, absolutely. And that's really the intent of what we've done in ICP 12.3 and 12.4, is to make provisions for the supervisory discretion and judgment, that if a non-IAIG is still potentially systemically important, critical if it fails, or otherwise, given its size, complexity, and the like, if a resolution plan is in order, then yes, the supervisor or resolution authority can require that. And the further question, in some jurisdictions, protection of policyholders and others is ensured by organizations formed based on insurance laws conducting insolvency proceedings rather than individual insurance companies. Can it be considered that the need to formulate resolution plans is due to the circumstances in such jurisdictions? Yeah, I think, I'm guessing, and if you're still online, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that your question revolves around the existence of a policyholder protection scheme or insurance guarantee fund, however you want to phrase it. And we do touch on in various other places in ICP 12 how a PPS can fit into the equation. But certainly I think the existence of some kind of support mechanism for policyholder protection is indeed a consideration in either determining the need for a resolution plan or devising the plan itself. Any other questions, folks?
Maybe, Alex, if I just add a few words to what you have said.
Please do.
Indeed, as the presentation has mentioned, the extension of the requirement for planning was decided also to be better aligned with FSB requirement, with the key attributes, but it is also consistent with the inclusive approach of IAIS. As we know, the thresholds for IIGs leave parts, whole regions of the world, where you may have small jurisdictions with small insurers far below the thresholds to be an IIG that are still systemic. So consistent with the inclusive approach of IIS and consistent with the key attributes, the need was felt to to enlarge the requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions?
I don't see any raised hands or chat message. No? Okay, then maybe we can close this session now. See?
We wait for the contribute from the public consultation, probably.
There is another question in the chat. I think it's for Alex, sorry.
Yeah, are the changes in 12.4 consistent with some jurisdictions going to a D-side designation? I think that's kind of what we were trying to capture here without saying D-side. The conversation did occur in the debate that we had at the resolution working group about was this really pointing at a DSI? So I think most certainly a DSI would be included, but that would not be limited to only a DSI. There's still open that possibility of any insurer that meets the criteria that a supervisor deems necessary can fall into the resolution planning requirement. Anything else, folks?
I don't see any questions in the chat. Ayana, I don't know if you see anything else.
No, I don't see any questions. Yeah.
All right. Well, Monica, Alex, I don't know if you have any closing remarks.
I would just say
Planet
thank you
seems
all
to
for
be
your
happy with
attention
the
this morning.
changes.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Just commenting that the whole planet seems to be happy with the proposed changes.
It appears so. We'll see when the consultation ends in 90 days, which of course we look forward to your input. And I think, Ayana, I don't know if we have anything else. Otherwise, we can close the session.
Yes, yeah, I think we can close session now.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your participation. And we look forward to your input in the coming days. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, and thank you all. Thank you very much.